Good morning and welcome viewers as well as my students. Today's class is going to be of discriminating monopoly. Few words regarding this market structure. Till 1936, microeconomics dealt with only two market structure, that was perfect competition and monopoly. On account of the great cost controversy of 1920, and most important, and another market structure emerged in 1936 by the name monopolistic competition or imperfect competition. Anyway, today we are just concerned with discriminating monopoly. Monopolist has the special feature because he has a controlled command over supply as well as the price of the commodity. So he can sell his product to different buyers or in the different markets at different prices. So this is a very particular peculiarity of this monopoly market structure. Now, how it can be defined? Discriminating monopoly is said to exist when the monopolist sells his product to different buyers or different market at different prices. Yes, so this is what the discriminating monopoly stands, that when the monopoly succeeds in differentiating the markets depending upon their elasticity, that we shall see just in detail right in this class itself, or he can use his own power to just sell his product to the different buyers at different prices, then we say that that monopolist is a discriminating. Discriminating means biased towards anyone or unbiased towards anyone. So when you are tilted or inclined towards anyone and at the cost of someone is avoided or neglected or some kind of under treatment, then it becomes discrimination. So here what monopoly does, same product, and he sells his same product to the different buyers or to the different market at different prices. Anyway, now primarily this discriminating monopoly is of three types: personal, local and end use. When monopolist succeeds in selling his product to the different buyers at the different prices, then it is called personal. Second one is local. This discrimination becomes local when monopolist sells his product at different prices in different locality. So on the locality based, this price distribution is being practiced. And thirdly, it is of end use. Depending upon the end use, monopolist succeeds in discriminating. Like a very good example, that when electricity is consumed in the house, you have to pay at some lower rate, and when the same electricity is being used in the industries, one is supposed to pay a higher rate. So this is a clear case of discrimination, and you can feel this discrimination in your economy day and night wherever you go. And if you are a little bit sensitive, you can feel. You go to the market, you just go to a shop and say that, well, I need 1 kg of washing powder. He realizes 100 rupees. Just besides you, another customer comes and he seeks 3 kg of washing powder. Same shape, rather same seller, same shop owner sells his product to the another buyer 3 kg at the price 240, means 80 rupees per kg. So one is getting 100 rupees per kg, another is getting at 80 rupees. So it is discrimination. So various examples could be given for discrimination. Now, A.C. Pigou defines 3 types of price discrimination: of first degree, second degree and third degree. Most dangerous is the first degree, where monopolist sells each unit of goods at different prices, and those different prices are the demand prices, highest price the buyer is willing to pay. So no consumer surplus anywhere is left for the consumer. So each unit in the highest price, this is demand curve, and any price corresponding to demand curve is the demand price or the highest price to be given by the buyer. So when each unit of the good is being sold at separate prices, then it is said that the price distribution is of first degree. Second degree, when it becomes second degree, in second degree, monopolist decides to sell a particular block of his good at some fixed price. Suppose 10 units, up to 10 units would be sold at P1 price. Up to from 10 to 20 units would be sold at the P2 price. From 20 to 30 units would be sold at the P3 price. And in this case, a smaller consumer surplus goes to the consumer. Yes. Here consumer surplus was nil, no consumer surplus, maximum exploitation of the consumer. Here, in this case, a little bit consumer surplus accrues to the consumer, and this is the shaded part. This becomes consumer surplus. And price distribution is of third degree when the monopolist divides in entire market into various different markets depending upon the elasticity of demand of the different markets, and he realizes different prices in different markets, as well as he sells different quantities of his goods in the different markets. So today's analysis is of third degree price discrimination. We are going to explore the equilibrium, the various conditions. So in this class, we are going to investigate this third degree price discrimination. Now we are going to see when it is possible and when it is profitable. Now, when discriminating monopoly is possible, it says that the different markets should be effectively differentiated. What it means? This effective differentiation or the effective distancing of different markets means that goods is not transferable from one market to another market, nor the buyer can be transferred from the dearer market to the cheaper market. So if the two markets are separated in such a way, this is called effective separation or effective differentiation. So the markets are so effectively differentiated that neither goods can be just transferred from one market to another market, nor the buyers can be transferred from one market to another market. Only then this discriminating monopoly is feasible. So this is what means for when it is for. Now when it is profitable, right? When it is profitable, when the different markets are isoelastic, means when the different markets have the same elasticity, then it is not paying for the monopolist to differentiate, because he won't be able to earn any amount of profit. Rather, he will have to keep his prices same in the both of the markets if both markets are isoelastic. Now, in 1936, in price theory, Mr. John Robinson of England gave a very important relationship between price elasticity and marginal revenue. This is extensively used in price theory and particularly in imperfect competitions. So we shall be using this relationship between MRP and elasticity, because here markets are differentiated as per the different amount of elasticity. Now, if there are two markets, first market and second market. There are two markets. Now, if both markets are isoelastic, E1 elasticity of first market, E2 elasticity of second market, and if both are the same, then why to call it by different names? It is E. MR1 is P1 into 1 minus 1 by E, and MR2 is P2 into 1 minus 1 by E. Now, what monopolist does, he equates marginal revenue in all markets. So, MR1 equals MR2. These two are equated. So, when we equate these two things, this is MR1, this is MR2. Now, this P1 by P2, this by this, and both are numerator and denominator are the same. So, 1, so P1 equals P2. So, it is not paying for the monopolist to differentiate or discriminate between different markets if the different markets are isoelastic. Now, when they are not isoelastic, when they are differently elastic, there are two markets, M1 and M2. These two markets has their own elasticity, E1 and E2. Prices are being P1 and P2, and let E1 is greater than E2. I am going to show that if first market is more elastic, second market is less elastic, then the price corresponding to more elastic would be smaller than the price corresponding to the less elastic market. So P1 is going to be less than P2 if E1 is greater than E2. How? This way I have said it. MR1 is P1 into 1 minus 1 by E1. MR2 is P2 into 1 minus 1 by E2. MR1 equals MR2. These two are equated. So P1 by P2 is 1 minus 1 by E2 upon 1 minus 1 by E1. Numerator is larger. Denominator is smaller. So P1 is going to be smaller than P2. I have shown it by taking an example. Let E1 is 3 because first market is more elastic. E2 is 2 and the price in the first market is 20. So the price in the second market is absolutely going to be greater than 20. So P1 by P2 is 1 minus 1 by E2 by 1 minus 1 by E1. From here I have picked it up. So P1 is 20, P2 is to be known, 1 minus 1 by E2, E2 is 2. So 1 minus half, 1 minus 1 by 3, 1 by 2 by 2 by 3, it becomes 1 by 3. So we have the value of P1. So this 20 by P2 equals 1 by 3. So P2 is 60. So P2 absolutely is greater than P1. So when the monopolist discriminates between different markets, he will charge higher prices in the less elastic market and lower prices in the higher elastic market. This way he works in the while he discriminates. Now we are going to see how he finds his equilibrium there, that I am going to show. Now we are investigating how a discriminating monopolist achieves his equilibrium. Now, a discriminating monopolist has two things to decide. What prices would be in the different markets, that is P1 and P2 he has to decide. And secondly, what quantities are to be sold in the different markets. In one market it is OX1, in another market it is OX2. So he has to decide regarding these two things. What price should be realized in the two markets. Supposing we have just the whole market has been differentiated under two markets, market 1 and market 2. Market 1 is more elastic, market 2 is less elastic. So here, what quantities would be sold in those two markets and what prices would be realized in the two markets. Now, to attain this equilibrium, monopolists follow the old marginal rule of equilibrium. That is, the equilibrium would be attained at this point E, where MR equals MC and MC cuts MR from below, and more technically we say that slope of marginal cost is greater than the slope of marginal revenue. So these two conditions he would be following. Now this is market 1, this is market 2, and this is aggregate market. Aggregate market, the sum of those two markets. So this AR1 and AR2, these two demand curves have been added up, and then we have got this aggregate average revenue. The summation of AR1 and AR2, we have got aggregate average revenue, and since these two demand curves have different slopes, that's why it has a kink at some place. So this is the aggregate average revenue. This is the marginal revenue corresponding to this aggregate revenue. Now this is the marginal cost. At point E, both conditions of equilibrium are being satisfied. So monopolist would be producing OX amount of output in toto. This OX amount would be divided under two markets, that is here. Now monopolist conditions say that we shall see mathematically right now, that in equilibrium, monopolist equates his marginal revenue of different markets with the marginal cost. So if we come straightway horizontally to these two markets, here it is E2, here it is E1. So in the second market, At E2 point would be the point of equilibrium, and corresponding to that point, OX2 of OX would be sold in the market 2, and corresponding to this point E2 we shall go on the demand curve and we get the price OP2. So in market 2, monopolist would realize OP2 price, and in market 2 he would sell OX2 amount out of this OX. Now come in market 1, this is more elastic. More elastic, that's why a flatter demand curve, it is steeper and it is flatter. So it is flatter one. Now here we have equilibrium at point E1. So corresponding to E1 point at output axis OX1, out of OX, OX1 would be sold in the first market, and for the regarding price, we go on the aggregate and average revenue curve, and OP1 price would be realized in more elastic market. OP2, a higher price, would be realized in less elastic market, and this is how discriminating monopolist achieves his equilibrium. Now I am going to see this entire equilibrium mathematically. We have two markets. Market 1, the upper one, and lower one is upper second market. So in the first market, this P1 is a function of X1. In second market, P2 is a function of X2, and the monopolist is going to maximize his profit, and marginal cost is the function of X. This X is the summation of X1 and X2, which will be produced by the monopolist. Now the profit function is defined as total revenue of the first market plus total revenue of the second market minus TC. This is this is our pi function. Now TR1 is P1x1 and TR2 is P2x2 and minus TC. Now, first condition to maximize profit, first condition is delta pi by delta x is 0. Now, this whole is to be differentiated with respect to x. So, delta TR1 by delta x1 plus delta TR2 by delta x2 minus delta TC by delta x barabar 0. This is MR1, this is MR2, this is MRC, this is the collective finding, and when we separate this thing, this becomes MR1 MC and MR2 is MC. This is how we find equilibrium in two markets. We have seen in the diagram right now. In the first market, MR1 was equal to MC. In the second market, MR2 was equal to M. This is how we equate the MC with a different MR. And second order condition requires that the second derivative of the this profit function is going to be negative. Now, the first order partial derivative is MR1, MR2, MC. So, its slope is smaller than the slope of MC. The slope of MR2 happens to be the slope less than the slope of MC. This is the sufficient condition, and this is the necessary condition under the discriminating monopoly. So, this is what about discriminating monopoly. Now, I am going to solve an example, numerical example on this one. Here we are having an example, and we have three markets. First market, second market, third market. In the three markets, we have the three demand curves, and this is the total cost curve, that is 20 plus 15x. Right here by differentiation we get marginal cost, so DTC by DX, and it is 15. This 15 would be used further. Now, for the first market, this is the demand function. So, we get the total revenue of the first market. So, TR1 is P1x1. This has to be multiplied by x1. So, 63x1 minus 4x1 square. Now, from this TR1, we get MR1. Once differentiated, we get MR1. So, 63 minus 8x1. Now, we have the condition that MR1 must equate MC. So, this is 63 minus 8x1, 15, and when this is solved, we get the value of x1, 6, and when this value is put in the demand function, we get the price equal to 39. So, in the first market, monopolist would sell 6 units of his product at the price 39. Now, come to the second market. For second market, we have this demand function. So, 105 minus 5x2, we get the TR2, total revenue of the second market, P2x2. Once differentiated, we get marginal revenue MR2. Now, we equate MR2 with MC. So, 105 minus 10x2, 15, and we get the value of x2 as 9. And 9, so, and we get the value of price P2. So, 105 minus 5x2, 5 into 9 is 60. So, in the second market, price would be 60 and output sold would be 9. And the third market, it is 75 minus 6x3. This is total revenue, this is marginal revenue. We equate MR3 with MC. So say 75 minus 12x3 equals 15. 12x3 is 60, x3 is 5. Now x3 is 5, we get the value of P3. So P3 is 75 minus 6s3, 75 minus 6 into 5, 30, 45. So this is the output and price for the third market. This is output and price in the second market, and this is output and price in the first market. Now, one thing you can see by observation, it looks that this market is most elastic, this one. So, in all likelihood, the price of first market should be the lowest one, and it is 39. This can be felt. Now here these are the two markets with different elasticity, different slopes, but different intercepts. So that is another thing. But it is easily visible that the highest elastic market or the most elastic market is realizing the lowest charge. And now the output sold in the two markets, X1 6, X2 9, X3 5. So the sum of these three outputs comes 20. In total, monopolist would be producing this 20 units of output. So this is how the numerical example is being solved under this discriminating monopoly. Now one thing to more, and the one variant of discriminating monopoly is the dumping. Dumping is the practice practiced by the exporters of the country when they sell their product at the lower price in the foreign market and the higher price in the domestic market. So dumping is another kind of discriminating monopoly. So in next class, I shall be explaining dumping in full detail. And for today, this is how this is all. Thanks. Now one thing more, student, that regarding this topic or the topics which I have covered in the previous classes, if any question, queries arises, you please do come in comments. You ask me. You put your own questions over there, and I'll be raising those questions in the class. So do entertain the class. I'm readily available.